Welcome my friends, welcome back to Project TAS. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you've watched any of my previous videos, thank you for returning to my channel. Today we're doing another Blake 7 episode review from Season 2. As always, I will point out that this review will inevitably touch upon certain plot elements of this episode, and may even reveal developments for the series of Blake 7 as a whole. So if you haven't seen this episode or anything else in terms of Blake 7, a huge spoiler alert is in order in case you wish to do a bit of Blake 7 catch-up prior to watching this review. You have been warned. Right, let's get to it, shall we? Between the brilliance of Trial and the dreck that followed this episode were the three episodes Killer, Hostage, and now this one, Countdown. Enjoyable across the board, even Hostage. Maybe the so good it's bad episode of Blake 7? No? Okay. These three episodes represent something of a buffer between what Blake has been searching for all this time, control. His first effort was disastrous, he sort of abandoned it, and only at the end of this episode does he know what he's going after. And out of these three buffering episodes, Countdown, for me, represents the best. Only Terry Nation's third Season 2 script, and it would be his last until Season 3's premiere. I think I prefer this one to Killer. As with most Terry Nation scripts, save for some of the ones towards the end of Series 1, it has a proper primary central story that can be clearly followed. It also builds upon the backstory of Avon, touching upon something I personally would never have expected Avon to come close to mentioning, a lost love. Not unless someone from his past happened to turn up on the same Doom planet he was on and spilt the beans. Nothing is expressly stated or revealed through any tedious exposition. It's all done through the conversation between Avon and Tom Shadbon's Grant, and their attitude towards one another, to say nothing of the threat that Avon received from Grant all those years ago, that he quotes to Blake.
Because the dull Grant that I knew said that if we ever met again, he would kill me.
Not that I ever thought for 1 minute that Grant would ever kill Avon, despite the bit when Grant looks cautiously at Avon when he's holding the gun. He's obviously angry, but of more concern to Grant is finding out exactly what happened to his sister. Finding out from the last man to see her alive, or who he thinks is the last man to see her alive anyway, but that's another episode and another review. For me, Paul Darrow delivers his best performance of the season so far, possibly for seasons 1 and 2 overall. He's still Avon, still hard-edged, still the cold, calculating SOB, but there's a new level being shown of him here, one of vulnerability and regret that Darrow performs without losing any of the traits that we love Avon for. The way he recounts that last day with Anna and the incident with the dealer. There are these hesitations and slight inflections, and then a standard recounting of what happened as Avon relives the incident and then goes through it in his usual impassive demeanour, like he's recounting what he had for breakfast. With regards to this dealer incident, it could be that Avon is telling us about his first kill, as well as his lost love, traumatic for any person, even someone ruthless enough to attempt to steal 5 million credits, or 500 million credits. Could this be the day that all these ingredients combine and plant the seeds of what would grow into Avon's nihilistic negative personality? It's one of the many aspects of this episode that makes it stand out so much for me. The standpoints between the various characters are all fascinating, even ones that represent something bigger than an individual. The exchange between Paul Shelley's creepily evil Provine and Nigel Gregory's guard, for example. This isn't just a conversation between one military despot and a soldier fighting for his freedom. It also excellently shows the different standpoints between the Federation and one of the planets they control. This episode also makes a bigger effort with its production and visuals. The opening battle, for example. Yes, I'm sure a lot of that debris is pieces of polystyrene, but I can't look at it and not say that this isn't a full-blooded battle. And even if the more critical viewers may scoff at the effects, I personally think it's good to see the extra enthusiasm and effort being put in. I like the real-time countdown as well. Or rather, I like the idea of the real-time countdown. 999 seconds would have covered just 16.5 minutes. It seems to take 2 seconds for each number to elapse, but that would still only take us to somewhere around the halfway mark of the episode. So clearly that doesn't entirely make sense, unless some of the scenes we see are actually meant to be taking place at the same time as other scenes we've already seen, if that makes sense. Or am I stretching the credibility? After all, Grant says they have less than an hour, so that kind of knocks that theory out of the water. I'm also less than impressed with Avon's maths in this episode. He says that they have used up more than half the time they have left to them, when we've already seen them go past that point about 5 minutes earlier.
We have now used up more than half the time we have available.
So him pointing out at the point he points it out at is a little redundant. Evidently the editing went a little skew with here. Unless this is where my parallel scene showing theory bears fruit? What do you think? I would have comfortably given this episode a very decent 2-star rating if it weren't for a few of the inevitable issues that arise, and regrettably a lot of it occurs during the bomb disarming scenes, where we also get Avon bearing his soul. For starters, Avon first says that he doesn't need anyone to help him defuse the bomb, a skill we never knew he had, but there you go. And yet, when it comes to the wire cutting bit, Avon doesn't know which order to cut them. He also needs help from Grant in isolating the primary detonator, I assume, so it's just as well Grant went with him. Given they're working to a very strict time limit, there's also a lot of standing about and looking at the melting ice instead of cracking on with the bomb defusing. I could probably ignore these issues and still happily give Countdown its 2 stars. Unfortunately, there's one final issue that makes me screw my face up like a melted Madame Tussauds figure at seeing it. They're down to the 3 triggering plungers. 2 of them have been rendered useless by inserting rods into the tubes, giggity, and for some reason Avon decides that Grant should do the last one, instead of just getting on with it himself. At this point the ceiling collapses on them because of the melting ice and poorly constructed house for the bomb. Everything is all over the place and Grant is trapped under a girder. But Avon decides not to leave him to die and manages to find the detonator and the not very futuristic Black & Decker. What he can't find, what Grant has lost, is the final rod. And then Avon... I can't even say it without getting irritated. And then Avon either finds the rod or finds an identical rod and manages to save the day, inevitably at the last possible instance. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. Finding the rod out of all that carnage when they realise they've lost the rod is ridiculous. One reviewer has suggested that the entire drill bit could have been used to drill completely through the tube and act as the final rod, which I agree would have been better, although this may have given too much attention to the very un-science fiction, not futuristic drill that is on show. It may not have been worth having this bit in it at all. Maybe the triggers were buried or difficult to reach, instead of finding a tiny rod amongst a pile of rubble. The phrase needle in a haystack clearly means nothing to Avon. I'm also a little confused as to why Blake wouldn't let poor Villa teleport back up. Yes, if Blake wants to sacrifice himself, that's fine, and others have pointed out that the radiation from the poles would have taken some time to reach them, so perhaps Villa needn't have been as eager to leave. But let's face it, Blake had no right to force Villa into this predicament. You're staying to die, Villa, whether you want to or not. Seems a bit out of order. Also, since Blake and Villa don't exactly know what's happening with the actual bomb defusing, other reviewers have suggested that cutting to Blake and Villa's reaction as the countdown hit 0 would have been far more dramatic. And I think they're right. It doesn't ruin the episode for me, but by the same token, I'm not quite as comfortable giving it 2 stars anymore. But I'm going to anyway. You know what, it's still entertaining, it's still a lot more intelligently put together than what's about to be served up in Blake 7, and the strands about Avon that have been set up here would lead to a particularly fascinating episode in Series 3. It is a 2-star episode, and all the issues that I'm grumbling about aren't quite enough to knock it off that perch. Almost, but not quite. Until we meet again in Season 3, Mr. Nation. That concludes my review on Countdown. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video, please share this video, please subscribe to my channel, and please check out my other Blake 7 episode reviews. And looking at those numbers, I'm pretty sure we have more than half the time we have left to us. Now hang on a minute.